Why hello there, fellow rocket scientists. Rodamon here. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeers Brutal Vulcan. Episode 77, Upgrading the Rockets for Insulation. So we're ready to, we have a lot of pipes that we just pulled from uninstalling the old fuel line, and we can, I'll organize this stuff later. We have plenty of plumbing now for, finishing that connection. So much Windows screensaver on this run? Yeah, absolutely. I won't lie to you, it's messy. But it works! And if you're ever confused, I can always explain it to you, because it's messy, but like, somewhat logical in its mess. So, fuel is a 2-to-1 ratio, and this is input 1, this is input 2, so input 2 will be oxygen. And then input 1 will be volatiles. It's 10. 10 kind of looks to be the right height. I'll have to double check in a sec. Yep, 10's fine. Haha! Awesome. Alright, fuel mixer for oxygen's hooked up. Obviously the ratio is not correct yet. I know. We haven't actually set up the fuel mixer. But it's we're getting pretty close to being able to mix fuel again. It's 5. Yeah, 5's too big. Okay. So now, input 2 should be 33, and input 1, 67. Right? That's the ratio of gas. Right? Whoop! Alright. Volatiles, it's 2-to-1 ratio, oxygen to volatiles. So, input 2 is at 33, input 1 is at 67. That is correct. Just double checking, because I don't want to make whatever incorrect, I mean, bad fuel mix. Like, and there it is. Now we have a gas mixer, now we need to wire it up. And then I probably want like a volume pump monitors, like this one, to be able to see like what's in the pipe when we're mixing. That was kind of the whole point, and I'll install that in just a minute. But this should make making rocket fuel just a lot easier. Or a lot less guesswork, I would say. That turbo pump is not needed there anymore, so let's remove that. This turbo pump is eventually going to be somewhere over here to fuel the rocket. So I'll just install it here. This is maybe not exactly where it's going, but it's going to go somewhere like that. Okay. I think the new fuel tank and system is all set up, except for the fact that, of course, it doesn't connect to the furnace. But apart from that, I think it's good. So let's go ahead and get 2 pipe analyzers. Or 3. 1 for the fuel, and then 2 for the mixers. For the intakes. And get that hooked up. I'm excited. Because we've probably... Whoa, Jesus. We've probably crushed enough oxygen to create enough fuel for the Private Barton exploration rocket now. So right now we are mixing fuel for Private Barton's launch. Oh, fry break. I'm running low on potatoes. I can make, I'm also running out of soy. So I'll have to go harvest in the farm soon. It's no problem. It's not like we don't have the inputs. I would even say French fries might be like a better food than bread. Bread just feels extra complicated, so I might just go back to potatoes and soy for oil and French, just for the French fries. It's just more straightforward, less flour grinding nonsense, which I can do without. All right. Pipe. Analyzer. And we want 3 of those. So we can check fuel, oxygen, bottles. Your cat loves Vulcan? Awesome. Hope it lives long and prospers. And I'll keep these extra pipes on me just in case I need them, but I could probably put the frames away. Did we get all the water out of the base? Oh, you know, maybe this doesn't... Oh, no, this is getting water. It just is getting water locally, so we're gonna move this around. Basically, I had a little bit of a water leak in the base, and I'm trying to, like, fix it. It's not an issue, it's just, like, a silly thing that I'm doing. Alright. Yeah, that's a lot of oxygen. I am sure we have a lot of oxygen. So let's also, let's check the tanks on the roof. I know I have 18 kilomoles of bottles, and I'm sure I have more than that of oxygen now. 27 kilomoles? Oh my god. Oh boy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can launch. We can launch. Sweet. Alright, so pipe analyzer. Pipe analyzer. Pipe analyzer. Let's get analysis going. Oh, that's... There we go. No, it should have been able to curve out. Some things can intersect, some can't. Okay. Let's name them. Fuel. H2. O2. 11. 26. This is only counting what's in the pipe, not in the tank, though. Right? Because, like, this is reading 8.6 kilomoles, but that is for the network. That does not include here. The advantage of inline is inline includes it in the network, and the tank does not. Meaning, I almost wish everything was inline, so I could get an accurate reading, because according to this, I have a lot more volatiles available to me than I have oxygen, but I know that to be incorrect. Right. in terms of temperature, my oxygen's a little bit colder than my volatiles. So what I'm going to do before I start gas mixing is pause the ice crusher making oxygen so that the oxygen can normalize with the hydrogen so that we get an accurate fuel mix. To explain in a little bit more detail, the fuel mixer just takes moles of input gases and doesn't have the concept of the temperature. And obviously, the colder something is, the more dense it is. So if the temperatures between the two inputs are off, you end up with the incorrect fuel mix, which is an inefficient fuel. We don't want to make inefficient fuel. Ideally, the temperature of the gases would be closer to... they'd be colder. Room temperature's fine, but like the closer to its freeze temp, the more bang for your buck you get out of it. But I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't even fueled up a rocket up to 100%. So we're waiting for these two temps to normalize. And then we'll create fuel for Barton. The other thing we could do is repair Barton, or repair Dave. So, I don't think that there's... for the gas tanks of a rocket, there's no insulated version, correct? Are these insulated? No, because of the thermal convection. Is there any way, like, what is the solution there? Because this obviously was a big old problem when we landed. I mean, I know we could, like, put it into a launch tube that's, like, vacuum, but, like, that's a lot more infrastructure than I care to have. Inline tanks and a pipe analyzer for my data? I don't know if you can... can you inline tank inside of a rocket, though? Is that even a thing? Because I don't think it is. Unless it is, I don't know. And the other thing is, I don't know if inline tanks will have enough physical volume to accommodate it. It's a thing? You're 95% sure? Alright, what is the volume? 1500 for a medium. Inline gas kit for 3. Ooh. The issue is weight to volume is bad. So, yeah, we could insulate it. I think turbo pumping it might make more sense. I'm more concerned about my thrust to weight ratio than I am about the internal heating. Because one thing we could do is to hook up the fuel line to its own cooling loop, like we do elsewhere in the base, where the fuel line is cooled. Now that we have a dedicated fuel area, we can cool our fuel. The only issue, if we cool our fuel too much, is the making fuel for the furnace gets weird. Because the furnace assumes that the input fuel is like room temperature. So if it's not room temperature, it might change the equation of making alloys a bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. All right, but 18.4, 19.1, they're equalizing. Just wait a little bit longer before we go back to crushing ice. There was one other thing I wanted to do, which is to name the downlink for the Dave rocket. Let's go do that too. Which, that should be in the nose cone, right? So just to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, the fuel storage in these rockets are not insulated, and on Vulcan they become super, super, super hot, which becomes a real problem. Where is the downlink? What the hell? Oh, it's here. Here it is. I didn't need to remove the nose cone. But it's not a problem if we, like, quickly fuel it up and launch it. It's only a problem if it, like, sits there. And when we landed this, we didn't have umbilicals to be able to pull the fuel out, so the fuel was getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and it was eventually going to have a flashover point and explode, which is why I just, like, ripped the fuel tank out, knowing that we'd have a small explosion rather than a bigger one later on. So it was a somewhat calculated risk, if you will. But, I don't know if I want to use inline. I mean, I guess I could use inline tanks. My only concern is that the dry mass of the inline tanks will be a problem. So I guess I'll poll you guys. Should I attempt to use gas inline tanks instead of rocket tanks? So the size of this rocket tank, if this rocket tank was an inline tank, that is what? Let me get my inline tanks to do measurements, but I think a medium-sized rocket tank is the equivalent in terms of footprint of a 1x3 times 4. I'm trying to visualize it, but it's going to be easier if I just grab some inline tanks. Do I have any other inline tanks? No. Alright, I'll print one up. Oh no, maybe, yeah, it's about 3 high. And I'll let me do the calculations before I pull. I did the wrong order of operations there. Util. So once the rocket's in space, space is, as far as the game's concerned, a vacuum, and there won't be any convection. So let's do some math. Let's math this out. The physical footprint of this thing is essentially a 1x3 tall times 4, because the medium tanks take up 4 spots. The caveat is it doesn't have a data port, so I'd only be able to know the amount of fuel that it has through the data port of the rocket's launch instead. So if this has 360 liters, and there's also like a dry mass thing too, but 360 times 4 is 1440. And the rocket tanks medium, so it's a little bit, it's a loss of 60 liters for the benefit that it doesn't have thermal radiation. So they're roughly equivalent in terms of volume. In terms of dry mass, I'm not sure what the difference is there, because I don't see mass calculations here in this Stationopedia. But they're roughly the same volume. One requires like a little bit more plumbing, but it would functionally solve the whole like the fuel is heating up to an explosion point if it sits problem. The other benefit is I could maybe eke out even more volume by using smaller inline tanks to just fill inside. Whereas the big tanks, you can't really do that. These small tanks are more manipulatable, so I can like shove more in for more volume. I don't know how to do dry mass calculation. Well, you know, maybe what I'll do is... So here is the private Barton. And we can see its dry mass is 900. So is it only calculating the fuselage? No, because the fuselage itself... Let's install one of these inline tanks in it and see if it changes. So it was at 920. And I'm going to slap one of these bad boys in and see if it, like, changes. Maybe it's magical and it just doesn't care about what's installed or not. I don't even know. So this is all science to me. Technically, that's installed in the rocket. Whether the game calculates its weight, we'll find out. No? Unless it hasn't updated. Doesn't weigh anymore. So I guess the dry mass for that doesn't matter. Alright, there we go. So, inline tanks would solve the heating problem, should we use them. Either way, I need to pull out the inline tanks I just threw in there, because they're not obviously going to get installed there. Yeah, tanks are weightless, apparently. It's fine by me. It's a game. It doesn't need to be real life calculations. So, just to reiterate the problems, these gas capsule tanks store our fuel, but they aren't insulated, meaning that the atmosphere of Vulcan heats up the gas, which poses a safety risk. So they're not necessarily safe to use. And the idea is, should we install safer fuel? Because this rocket almost blew up. Well, technically it kind of did blow up. Because the gas in there, the fuel in there got too hot and I had to rip it out in a panic. And you guys think yes. So the current priority is upgrade private Barton for insulated tanks and launch. Because I'm sure at this point our oxygen and volatiles are like roughly the same temperatures, so they can be mixed. So let's yoink this out. I don't have a recycler, so I don't care. Will Captain ever return to Vulcan? Private Barton? That one? Or Nabla? Are you talking about Nabla? And we want at least 12 insulated pipe utility gas tanks. Maybe even more if we can fit more. Will the Explorer ever return? No, it doesn't need to return. Why would you ever need to land an Explorer? Think of it this way. All of the rockets that NASA has ever had to explore the solar system that isn't doing sample collection has never returned back to Earth, has it? Because why would you ever pack more fuel than you need? I'm not collecting anything, so it doesn't ever need to come back. Be illogical to build it to be able to return. Doesn't make any sense. That's littering. Luckily, Vulcan gets really hot, so it's not littering, it's recycling. It's melting away and entering the environment again. Which is actually true. Every time there's an ash storm, it destroys things that are outside, and eventually it will destroy them fully. And so it's not really littering, I'm storing it for future demolition. So let's do 15. Rather than, so if I did 12, it would have slightly less volume than the inline, or than the regular rocket fuel tank. But if I do 15, then I have more storage, so it's actually like an upgrade. It'd be cool if you could crash the recycler for material later. It would be cool, but like, ultimately, crashing it destroys more landing pad than it does like return material that we want, I think. For the most part, generally the crashes are pretty catastrophic. That, and when you're exploring outwards. So to have all the fuel for the return trip, like, kind of low-key doesn't make sense. So here we go, 15 inline tanks. And checking up on O2 and volatiles. So this is 19.1, 19. Yeah, basically they did the same temp. So we're ready to go. Mix fuel. Not on the landing pad, just wherever it comes back down. The problem is you can't have it come back down unless it's targeting a landing pad, because it's like a maneuver. There might be a way to like have it start landing and then uninstall the landing pad. I've never tried that because it's never occurred to me to do that because it's kind of insane. I don't know what would happen. I'd honestly be straight up concerned that it would like throw the game into an error state and like, what? I mean, hypothetically, sure, maybe? I don't know. I really don't know. Alright. I might need a pipe analyzer. We'll find out if the rocket can read fuel amounts or not. So now they're all being hooked up to one another. Yeah, I like this better. It has more flexibility, which is nice. Build flexibility is always a good thing. And then we have one more util tank to be able to put in. Maybe I'll do a 2... Ah, shoot. I could... I'll pull off the nose cone. And see what we got working with. I wonder if I have to spray paint it green again. Oh yeah, I could, because I could just do like this. In fact, I could fit a whole nother one, but I don't think I need that much. Yeah, hell with it. We have so much oxygen. I'm gonna just do it. Let's just install a whole another 3 set. I think if we do that, I am essentially out of silicon. So let's get some silicon for that while I'm out here. I set on... Nope, I'm set to mine. That's argentum. Where be silicon? Oh, no, okay. Gotta get jetpack fuel or I'm gonna crash. I don't know the full amount of fuel that we need to run a, like an exploration mission. It's not like a number I have memorized or anything like that. Which is why I figure it's in my best interest to just, like, go overboard and get a lot. So let's see if it's absolutely needed. I have... No, I have enough silicon in here. Alright, we'll just finish it off. It was the steel I was almost running out of, not the silicon. I misread anyway. Alright, I promise we will launch the Explorer this stream. I'm very close to having everything in place for the fuel, so it's really only a matter of time. Alright, that's done. Oh, I nested belts. Oops. Is this... still green? Oh, nice. I was wondering about that because I had pulled it off. All right, so now we have a bunch of fuel storage, even more. So that's what was it? 360 times 6. So we went from oops. Went from 1500 to 2160 in terms of total storage. Cool. Let's mix fuel. So I'm gonna say, I don't know how many kilomoles, but we'll just fuel mix for a while and see how many kilomoles it ends up making. Because we generate... Volatiles is infinite, we just pull it from the atmosphere, and we crush so much oxygen that I'm not really worried about using it all up. So I'm going to say, like, maybe in the order of, like, 10 kilomoles of oxygen, 20 kilomoles of volatiles. Although I don't think we had 20 kilomoles of volatiles, so I'll just use up all the volatiles, essentially. Once the volatiles are full, that's, like, how much fuel we'll add to this thing. I think that's a good stopping mark. We'll have to start filtering volatiles again. What's the temperature inputs of the mixer? 19.2, 19.2. They're identical. Because I stopped crushing oxygen ice, so they equalized. And it takes like 10 minutes to equalize from our setup, but yeah, they're... And because the fuel that we're mixing is colder than the fuel that was in here, it's like a net positive. Because the, So at this point, I think what's happening is... Once the pressure in the volatiles pipe is lower than the pressure of the fuel pipe, it will stop mixing because it's equalizing the pressure. The gas mixer isn't a pump. So we could solve this with a back pressure regulator or a pressure regulator to pressure regulate the inputs if we wanted to. Because essentially we can't get any more fuel than this because the not efficiently because of the pressure gradient is bad. And that affects the gas mixer. And what's weird is it doesn't tell you that anywhere in the gas mixer. That it's not like a volume pump. Obviously it isn't a volume pump. But yeah, it doesn't say. It just is like mixes and ratios. But like that's how it works. So we can only really get about 7.3 and 14.8. Yeah, or pressure regulate between the mixer and the tank. True. Let's do that. Yeah, let's install that. That seems like a must-have. So you want a gas pressure regulator so that we can keep fuel mixing even when inputs are lower. That makes a lot of sense. And I believe we already have one of those sitting around. Pressure regulator. Or even just like a volume pump. Yeah, a regular old volume pump will work. Because the pressure regulator isn't great for moving unless it's high pressure from behind, but a volume pump will be able to pull the mixed gas away. And it doesn't need to be a turbo because it's not reversing directions ever. The only reason to use, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons to use the turbo is you can change the direction of the flow. That's the huge advantage of the turbos, is you can go either way, whereas the regular volume pumps can't. But in this case, we don't really need to ever change directions. That does mean that this should probably be installed like here. We'll have to rework this a little bit. Because if I'm not mistaken, the you can't directly go from volume pump to mixer to volume pump. There has to be a pipe in between. Oh, I'm making a mess. Sorry for the big mess. It's about to get worse, and then it will get better. Alright, vol pump. So the volume pump will make it so there's lower pressure right after the gas mixer, so the gas mixer can like actually do its thing without the pressure gradient being a problem. And then this can then feed to the gas tank. Okay, I have more orange. Good. Okay, this should fix our problems with inefficient gas pressure. And then we just put the pipe analyzers back. Perfect. So now I can see without the analyzer, like, how much fuel we have. But I just, from... And this could probably even be down to like 1 liter. Nope, it's pressurizing at 1 liter. Alright. Go overkill, because I never want it to overpressurize there. Alright, there we go. So now it's mixing efficiently. And we're able to bring the numbers up above where they paused at before. The rocket is still missing a pipe analyzer, but it's far less of an issue now. The reason I had the pipe analyzer before is there was like a bit of an urgency because of the internal heating problems that we were facing, but now it doesn't have an internal heating problem because we've solved that with the inlines. So we shouldn't have a situation where it goes blammo. And we'll work until we have... Let's leave like 2 kilomoles of volatiles left in there. So we'll do 18 kilomoles volatiles and 9 kilomoles oxygen, and that will be our launch for exploration. Because I'll be dehydrated and starving if I do it any longer. And one could set up logic for this, so it like it, you know, runs until we have X amount of mixed fuel or something, you know? You could certainly do that. In fact, I'm gonna let it run while I go get food and water, because it's mixing slow enough that I could probably top up before it's a problem. I'm so used to being able to look outside through this window, but we've changed it. I could add a window here, though. So the crew quarter can look out on the rocket. Future project. The other thing is, can the Barton read... So the... No. The rocket doesn't read oxidizing volatiles, so it's going to need its own pipe analyzer. And then with this pipe analyzer, we could do a reader. Well, actually, you know what? I don't know if the... So the data for this pipe analyzer is pulled wirelessly to the uplink. So as long as it's on this heavy cable network, yeah, we could... The data for the pipe analyzer is exposed, I guess. Do I even have a straight pipe anywhere in here? I'm gonna need to install one, because there's nowhere to install this pipe analyzer, I don't think. No, there really isn't. Okay, let's set that up. That was weird. I heard the install noise, and then it was like, yeah, just kidding. That'll work. Now, of course, we ought to name it, because otherwise it's just yet another pipe analyzer, and I have no idea what it links to. So this is the... Private Barton pipe analyzer. And we'll turn it on. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeers Brutal Vulcan, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhodomont.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhodomont.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Stationeers.